All right, everyone. You'll probably recognize this face. It's Kevin Annett. He is back. Oh my God, you've gone through a lot in the last couple of months, Kevin. This has been really all coming to a crescendo, isn't it? Coming to a climax, and we've got the court case to talk about and the verdict and everything else. But firstly, how are you doing? Have you been all right?
Well, I've been exhausted with all the work I've been doing. It's involved eyewitnesses sitting down with me and telling their story, doing it over line. It's just incredible the stuff I've learned, even worse than the previous things. But also there being, serious attacks on people in the court, and there's been a lot of blowback because we're getting close to the bone on this stuff and
Mm.
involving this recent court case. So.
So yeah, so could we sort of go back because last time we spoke, the court case hadn't even started yet. I think the summons hadn't even gone out, or maybe they'd just gone out. But what was the process from then? So the summons went out to all the different people, Trump, Charles, Rutter, right? And maybe a few others as well. So what was the process? Can you tell the audience sort of like what happened there then?
Well, just the background of what the court case was. A whole bunch of new evidence surfaced about the present Pope, Robert Prevost,
Yeah.
the guy from America, and so-called Pope Leo. And you noticed the other day, Charles is having a nice little prayer session with him in the Sistine Chapel in Rome,
Mm.
right? These two guys have now been legally convicted of being involved in the Ninth Circle, which you know about. We've talked about in the
Yeah.
past.
Mm.
This kind of centuries-old child sacrificial and trafficking network within the Catholic Church. It's a symbol. The two of them standing there's a symbol of what's happened in that. If back in 2010, Elizabeth signed what's called the Holyrood Agreement, and that brought the Church of England back into the the Church of Rome, which should have got her forced to abdicate because she violated her coronation oath right there. But it's a sign of what's really happening, this kind of convergence going on, not just in terms of churches, but financially. A lot of the Vatican bank money, and this comes down to money, we found out. A lot of the Vatican bank money and the Mormon church, as it turns out, which is hugely endowed, it's got over 160 billion in assets. All of that money, the present Pope, like his predecessor, is trying to channel towards Beijing. And there's a faction within the Vatican that's traditionally more Western, and they're trying to prevent that. So a lot of these guys are involved in this Ninth Circle, including people like Mark Rutte, the head of NATO. He's got a long history in the Netherlands. As president, he helped conceal these things. He was seen in Ninth Circle ceremonies
Hmm.
and all that. And as head of NATO, this could have huge repercussions because there could be a war on the horizon between NATO and Russia, right? So all of these factions are trying to blackmail each other using this evidence they have on each other in the Ninth Circle, because these ceremonies are always filmed, and they use to blackmail the participants and that kind of thing. And so, to give you an example of a few things, the court convened. It was working all summer, and I was an advisor to the prosecutor. It was working in America and across Europe, and interviewing a whole bunch of new eyewitnesses who were present. To give you an example, remember when John Paul I was poisoned, the
Hmm.
Pope, in 1978, because he was getting too close to the ties between the mafia and the Vatican Bank? He's dead after 28 days in office. The same month, this present Pope is ordained as a priest, and we have a picture of him. If you folks go back to murderbydecree.com under ITCCS updates, you'll see, go back 3 or 4 months, you'll see all of these things posted with all the evidence, the images I'll be talking about, and everything. There's a picture of Prevost smiling and shaking hands with John Paul II, who had just ordained him as a priest. And that same month, two German women described uh, having been at a ceremony where right after he took his vow as a Catholic priest, he took a vow to the Ninth Circle. And they said they participated in the ritual killing and cannibalizing of a young Italian boy in the area underneath St. Peter's Square. There's an area, it's called, and we posted the schematics of this so people could see the diagram of where this is. Right under the obelisk in St. Peter's Square is a thing called the Tomb of Lucifer. And that's where these Ninth Circle ceremonies have been held since at least 1869, according to a log that we got out of the Vatican Library, right? This was all put as evidence to the court. And so, eyewitnesses, including insiders in the Ninth Circle who have come forward in return for amnesty. They provide a lot of this inside information. Also, Interpol sources, other people around. And the American piece of this is really interesting because it has to do with, remember how I mentioned that pro-China faction around the present Pope and Pietro Parolin, the senior cardinal. They're trying to get the money China way because they have run, the Vatican Bank has underwritten a lot of the Chinese takeover of the North American economy. There was an actual deal signed between Francis and China about this 3 years ago when he was in Canada. And so this other faction around a guy called Cardinal Timothy Dolan, who was the guy that Trump wanted to put in as Pope. They're good buddies. And both of them were seen at not only Ninth Circle ceremony in south of Brussels, but Keith Schiller, who's a former bodyguard to Trump, gave, in return for amnesty, he gave, or rather his lawyer, provided evidence to the court saying that he was present in the spring of 1999 in Epstein's apartment in Manhattan, where there was a snuff film done, a young Asian girl killed on film and killed. Trump was there and participating, according to Schiller and Epstein and all these other guys. So, I mean, these are, unlike previous court cases, we've got people very close to the people have all been convicted. Now, the court deliberated for a month. They did it according to due process, the rules of evidence. All of the people were subpoenaed. Two of them responded and wanted to make a deal. That was Keith Schiller and a guy who's the former moderator of the United Church of Canada, Gary Patterson. He's a notorious member of the West. It's called the 12 Mile Club off the west coast of Canada, where they take children outside the 12-mile territorial limit on boats and, do whatever and then dump them overboard. We've spoken to crew on these yachts who have, given their testimony that this goes on. Anyway, Patterson is key in that. And he tried to make a deal. Now, the thing about that is that they know, and this is what's changing, John. It's really interesting. Before, they didn't break ranks. Now they are. They're beginning to fall out among themselves. And that's always a really good sign. It means this is having a huge impact. And as we know, and the whole thing about Andrew, they're setting Andrew up, of course, as the fall guy because you know how they stripped him of his titles? That way, when he's arrested, which is upcoming very quickly, we've even provided some of the police agencies with even more dirt on Andrew, which I can go into. But they got to divest him of all royal titles, so the crown isn't implicated, right? And it's a standard thing. You throw one of your own to the crowd to try to placate them, right? I mean, this is the oldest game in the world.
Throw the dog, throw the dog a bone, basically. Throw the public a person to make them feel like they're onto something, and it's under control. Yes. But it's just damage. It's damage control, isn't it? At this point, from their perspective,
totally
right.
When people feel they can't do anything, they have to realize, in fact, we have a great advantage. I call it the advantage of disadvantage, where when you're small and you don't seem to have much power, they don't see it coming, and you can maneuver around all of what they're doing, because as big institutions, they have a set protocol. They can only react in certain ways, and we know what they're going to do. They're going to, like you say, use these tactics of trying to distract, throw a few people out to placate everyone. But it doesn't work because people have learned that this is a reflection of not just bad individuals, but whole systems that are corrupt and that feed off this criminality right from the very top. So that has kind of revolutionary implications, when you think about it. And that's what they're worried about, that people are going to put two and two together and realize that, we got to fundamentally change that. And that's why we're, doing this other work to create common law assemblies and courts to get people out of the system, right?
I would have thought, if they make someone like Andrew a fall guy, you'd think these people would be so narcissistic that they'd want revenge on the people that did it to them. And then they would then smear the other person, and they would smear. Why is it that they keep quiet and then they don't kind of take down some of their buddies with them, so to speak?
By they, do you mean other people who are participating?
So we were talking about how they create fall guys. So they'll basically say, this one's the kind of the bad one, and then it keeps the rest of the group intact, immune from criticism, because they're kind of like throwing the public, one of the fall guys. But like, why is it that you don't? Because they're so narcissistic, these people. You'd think that they would go, right, if you're going to take me out, I'm going to take the lot of you out, and be because they're narcissists ultimately, aren't they? Psychopaths, narcissists. They probably want revenge. But someone like Andrew just takes it, absorbs it, and he doesn't kind of try and take anyone with him. Why do you think that is?
You know, in the book or in the movie Dracula, where
Yeah,
Dracula has these human accomplices, his slaves,
yeah,
like Renfield, okay, who's locked up in the psych ward, right? Okay, so
right,
these lower level guys are like Renfield. They're
okay,
enthralled to this power, but they're also worried about their own ass, and they're not necessarily as overtly evil as the people doing these horrendous things, but
right,
they don't know which way to blow, and they can be reached. And it's not an accident that the two people who broke and approached the court were lower level guys, right? They weren't the top people because they think they're God and they can't be touched. That like people like Charles and these bishops of Rome and Trump and all these people. But it's not true because what happened, and I just put in this final piece, the court found all of them guilty. There were five magistrates. The majority opinion, three of the five, found all of them guilty of crimes against humanity, sentenced them to life imprisonment without parole, and the seizure of their property and assets and authority. So people like Trump and Charles and that, they're under international law now. They're rogue rulers. They have lost their right to govern, and that has huge implications, in America and elsewhere, right?
mm,
But two of the magistrates had a minority opinion, and they said they recommended the death penalty for people who had command responsibility, and that's a really important thing under the law. If you have the power to change a situation and you don't, you're not just a rank and file participant. You bear responsibility for all of it. And in fact, that was the legal basis on which they executed King Charles I in 1649,
mm,
because he directed his armies to destroy Parliament and at the behest of the Vatican, basically, right? And that was the basis. And he wouldn't plead either, right? So he was found guilty. He didn't contest what was being said about him any more than these top guys are. So that whole thing, it means that we're finally saying they are not above the law. They are as responsible. When you torture and kill children, it doesn't matter who you are. You're liable under law for to
yeah.
for be held
Yeah.
responsible for what you did.
So can I ask about the court case and can we go back to like, so when did it stop? Where was it? Like, didn't you say that there's people broke into the court and you had to kind of move it to a new court? I think I read in one of your emails, correct? And then how do you get the magistrate in? Like, where do you get them from as well? And then what? Yeah, kind of. You also mentioned, let's say, three out of five of the people on the list were proven guilty, right? And then two out of the five weren't as well. I'd quite like to know which three were and which two weren't as well.
No, no, they were all found guilty.
Oh, they're all
Okay,
found
but
guilty. Okay.
three of the five recommended in terms of the sentence.
Yeah, okay.
Three of the five said life imprisonment without parole. Two of the five, and it was that close. One judge the other way would have issued the death penalty. Two of the five said these certain people, the top people, were,
Should have death
deserved the
penalty.
death
Right.
penalty.
Okay.
The way it operated was like similar court. The first court we did that forced Ratzinger out of office in 2013,
Mm,
and eventually forced three cardinals to step down, who were all indicted by our court. The way that worked, it was based in Europe, out of Brussels, but we learned from that experience. There was a lot of attempts to shut it down, so we deliberately decentralized it. We didn't have it in one location. There were two poles of work in America and in Europe.
mm,
Again, on the continent, uh, somewhere on the continent, three of the judges, two of the judges were in America. And that is because one of the things, and I posted this on my Telegram site, the photos of this guy. There was a priest called Joe Moreno in Buffalo, New York, who had documented how Timothy Dolan, that cardinal who Trump is trying to put in as Pope to counter the China faction because he wants all the money of the Vatican
mm.
Bank, right? This Cardinal Dolan ordered the killing of a priest called Joe Moreno back in 2012, right when our first court opened up, and that's not accidental. Joe Moreno had gone against the tide in the Catholic Church. Their policy of crimin says no one is to talk about these things or tell the police. Joe Moreno put together a whole huge portfolio of how the Catholic Church was trafficking children, using them all over, New York, Pennsylvania, trafficking children across the Great Lakes into Canada. It was all thoroughly documented because he was an insider. He was about to take that to a guy called Cardinal Vigano, who was subsequently excommunicated by the church because he criticized Francis and others, for doing nothing about the child rape, right? And at the time, Cardinal Vigano was papal nuncio in Washington. Joe Moreno was taking this stuff to Vigano and to the FBI on a Monday morning, October 15th, 2012. Saturday, he's found dead in his church office, 2 bullet holes to the back of the head. Actually, he was on, the left side. His left hand was deformed. He couldn't hold. So they claim, the police show up. Before the coroner even arrives, they say it's suicide, even though he somehow tried this. Take your right hand with a gun in it and try to shoot yourself twice in the back of the head. I mean, it's an obvious statement that, look, we killed him and now we're getting away with it. We're saying it's suicide. And the sister of Joe Moreno, Sue Moreno, came forward, and she's been working for years to try to bring out the truth about this. Well, I've been working with them in New York and Buffalo, sat down with them, and it's incredible what these people know. The extent of this is mind-blowing. It isn't just factions within the church. It's at every level of the police, social services, the courts. It's enormous. And it isn't just for ceremonies. It's at every level of, providing children for anything people need. It's a huge, like, human slave trade.
Yeah, absolutely. Jon Wedger explained to me how like the care homes, social services are all just part of it as well, and it's all an inversion. But just going back to the court, so because I'm trying to get my head around how the court worked then. So are we allowed to say where it was, or are you saying it's kind of hidden information? We can't say that, like where you actually did the court case.
It was a mobile court. Okay,
Oh, it's online.
Okay, so they
Right.
moved around also, not only
Yeah.
for security reasons,
Yeah.
but because that allowed them to go to the scene of the crime and examine evidence directly. For example, one of the
Okay.
spots there's a picture, I don't know if I ever sent it to you, but Toos Nienhaus, one of the survivors of the Ninth Circle in the Netherlands and Belgium, she's standing in a field pointing. It's just south of Brussels, and she was brought there. The Belgian army cordoned it off, and there were human hunting parties there involving this Mark Rutte guy, who's now head of NATO, and other people, Dutch royals, Charles was seen there on occasion. She said children were brought out and immolated. They had lighter fluid poured on them, were burned alive. And then teenagers were brought who had been taken by the police out of youth detention centers, stripped naked, forced to run through the woods. They were hunted, right? And so these are like one of the places the court went, because there was forensic proof they looked at that this stuff had gone on. Eyewitnesses pointed out where it happened, that kind of thing. So that's why the court had to move around. Nevertheless, there were people, one of the eyewitnesses and 2 researchers vanished. They're just gone. We don't know where they are. They're probably dead.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So when you mean mobile, do you mean that there isn't actually a physical space? It's all done online? Or are you saying there were actual physical courts, but it's just that you had to keep moving from one court to another?
There were courts. There were places where they met and convened.
Okay.
They were usually safe houses that the network in Europe uses. But we had our own security. As a matter of fact, we had, and for the last number of years, I've had this bodyguard, Joseph, who I talk about sometimes. And he's a former East German commando, right? He has all the skills, knowing how to protect people. We have had more people come forward like that. Former judges, former military, and present sources within NATO and Interpol and other things, who see which way the wind is blowing now. And they, maybe because they know they're implicated, they want to help out now and kind of jump ship. And you find that more and more things fall apart as
That's
this
good.
truth gets
That's good.
more legitimated.
So tell me about, you started the court case, and then I remember in your emails you said 2 people in masks came in and they just tried to kind of disrupt it straight away, right? What can you tell us some more about that?
No, what happened with that was that there were a couple of judges having lunch, and they got attacked publicly by these guys. They had tracked them, and fortunately, they had security people there to protect them. After that, it went off the radar even more.
Okay, what went off the radar? The court you had to make it all very kind of
The
more,
court, the
yeah, the
court went
courts.
off the radar after that,
Yeah,
and
okay.
didn't even go out for food. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
they just operated on
Yeah.
their own.
Okay. So then how long did the whole process take before there was actually, the convictions, before they actually
About a month.
a month?
You know,
Yeah,
they
okay.
spent a month. You know, all of September and then into October a bit. The final verdict came out October 6th, and
Yeah.
then on the 8th, they announced a $10,000 reward for anyone who would provide information.
Hmm.
And in fact, one of the people who came forward to claim that is a former member of Charles's security retinue, who was told us, confirmed what we knew already, that he had ordered the hit on that native man, William Coon, in Canada,
Yeah.
after he came out describing how Elizabeth and Philip took those native children from Kamloops they've never seen again.
Yeah.
And he's the one who said two of them, in fact, were brought to Carnarvon Castle in Wales, where they were used in ceremonies. So, I mean, that's the kind of information. But also that Charles had put out these hits, including on that case in Saskatchewan a few years ago where Rio Tinto discovered diamonds. And one of the chiefs held out and was opposed to the diamond mining. Now, Rio Tinto is a royal family connected company. Charles, this is like just a couple of days after Elizabeth dies.
Hmm.
What happens is this one chief, Cree chief in eastern Saskatchewan, he's saying no to the diamond mining. A guy shows up and kills six of his relatives in one night. Okay. The Mounties claim he was a guy with a knife somehow broke in, even though he was kind of a vagrant. And then the vagrant, the guy, the so-called gunman, dies in RCMP prison the next night, conveniently, right? And then the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Prime Minister, they all show up in this little obscure Indian reservation and plant $46 million on the band council chief, hush money, right?
Hmm.
To cover the fact that Charles had just do anything possible because he had to secure his Rio Tinto investments after the old lady kicked off, right? So I mean, it's all confirmed by people on the inside that this is just how it operates, right?
Mm. So what's kind of after the court case, is there now is it not the case that there's a it's like they're wanted now and people can deputize their own sheriffs to kind of arrest them, or how does it work now? And can you
Exactly.
just give us the list? Can you just give us a summary of the list of the people that, all the ones that, because they were all found guilty, right? Can you just give me a quick summary of the names for everyone?
I will. I'm going to pull it up. It's right on our website. Like I said, you can
Yeah,
go to
okay.
murderbydecree.com under ITCC's updates. I'll get it up for you here.
Thanks, mate.
Yes, there's citizen arrest warrants, but it's more than just citizens arresting them. Um, it's any people. We have deputized police um, and others to to do these arrests because they're valid warrants. I mean, as a matter of fact, the police are obligated to enforce these warrants under international law.
Mm.
Here's the people who were found guilty and are now subject to immediate arrest by anybody: Robert Pvost, Pope Leo XIV, Mark Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, Charles and Andrew Windsor, Donald Trump, Keith Schiller, his former assistant, Albert Bourla. We haven't talked about him yet. He's the CEO of Pfizer Pharmaceutical. And I'll mention that significance. Justin Welby, former Archbishop of Canterbury, Fred Hiltz, former Anglican Primate of Canada, and three Catholic cardinals: Pietro Parolin, Timothy Dolan, Reinhard Marx, and finally Gary Patterson, former moderator to the United Church. Now, I didn't mention the whole pharma connection in this. These nine circle ceremonies were not just some arcane ritual. They were very integrated. What we're learning is that they were integrated with military experiments and drug testing. So pharma companies for many generations have used children. The military used these torture rituals to test the limits of how well the human brain operates under trauma, which you need for battlefield, application,
Mm.
right? So, I mean, they all had a role in this, and it was very lucrative financially, but it also was tied into the whole bioweapon industry, really. The things that are being deployed against all of us now, guess who they tested it out on? Kids like this, right? Who were like
Right.
beyond they couldn't be reached. They were gone once they're taken. And what better cover from that than the military and churches behind which these things can operate you
Mm.
know, and no one knows, right?
So they were the test. You're saying the children were the test rats for a lot of the things we put in the arms over the last few years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we learned this years ago in the Indian residential school campaigns in Canada that survivors talked about drug testing, where the lone survivor, they in this one Catholic school at Cooper Island on the west coast of Canada, they took 50 Native kids and German-speaking doctors. This was actually right after the war, so this is Project Paperclip coming in.
Mm.
German-speaking doctors, one of whom had an SS tattoo right there on his arm. They were drugging these kids, and they were on the in the pay of Pfizer because they saw the corporate stuff. This Delmar Johnny, one of the survivors, told me this personally. He was the sole survivor of 50 boys that who were given this. They were all killed by it, medical genocide, and it was a routine thing. We've seen references to it in correspondence, that I've reprinted in murderbydecree.com. So I mean, not unusual. This stuff happened all over the world. Any vulnerable group gets targeted that way and used by these corporations. So you got that
Mm.
three-headed monster of church, state, and corporate money, right? All profiting from these rituals.
Yeah. So they were all found guilty, all of those then, and now it's the warrants are out for their arrest. And is it? Have we? I don't suppose it's too early to say if you can see the ripple effect of that, or have you noticed anything happen as a
Um,
result of this?
you faded for a minute. Could you repeat
Yeah,
that?
sorry, I was just saying. I guess it's too early to say whether there's a felt ripple effect from this or not, or can you see anything's happened since this?
Well, absolutely. They're moving to arrest Andrew. And don't forget, here's the other thing I didn't mention. Two of them have actually been detained by police. Now, this Gary Patterson in Canada was picked up last week and questioned by the RCMP on a related charge having to do with the evidence that he molested children in his church, St. Andrew's Wesley in Vancouver, which we often picketed. And whenever we did, the goons would show up because they were, that's the thing about these people. When you cut close to the nerve, they react because they have so much to lose.
Mm.
The cops picked Patterson up on a separate charge, but they've done this before. When we're getting close to somebody, the police pick them up, hold them on something, and then when the heat has died down a bit, they just release them. Right. So it's a way to actually protect them. The other fellow who's been picked up and questioned by police since the verdict is Reinhard Marx. You can look him up. He's the Cardinal of Munich. And according to two of the German survivors of the Ninth Circle, he was there presiding over these grisly things. They even had children in cages where one of the witnesses said she was hired to take blood out of the children regularly, and they were handing them over to drug companies, right? And they literally bled these children to death. They died in these cages, and he supervised all that, right? And he was providing protection for it and all that. So he's being picked up. We don't know if it's a similar situation to Patterson or not, but time will tell, right?
Mm. Okay. So yeah, I need to think. Yeah, there's so you're giving me so much information. It's difficult to know where to go with all that.
I know.
So okay,
Yeah.
so what about some of the big hitters? Like so, obviously Andrew stripped of his titles and stuff. We've known that that's something. I mean, that could be correlation, causation. I don't know, but that's definitely happened. But what's likely to happen with the others then?
The usual pattern in the past has been they just vanish for a while. They go off
Right.
the radar
Okay.
and they create a cover story. Now, don't forget, they don't deny these things. We've learned this time and again.
Hmm.
At first, they deny it, but when enough evidence comes out, they can't deny it. So they redirect the issue. They put out a false narrative. Okay, so the false narrative will be, yes, we've discovered some of these rituals happen, but they've all been arrested. It doesn't operate anymore. There's no evidence these people who are listed by the court ever did anything. They just do what people want to hear, which is that the system is fine. There were just a few bad apples, right? They play into that human need not to believe this. Because if we know and finally understand that the people running society are these child killing monsters, that that has revolutionary implications, right? People are not going to
Hmm.
pay taxes. They're not going to be part of this anymore. They're going to listen to what we're saying about setting up your own courts and assemblies and taking back power from this corrupt system. And so they don't want that. They want to keep people asleep. And they do that. They inoculate them with these false narratives.
Hmm.
Like now in Canada, they're saying, oh, genocide happened. we're the only ones using the word genocide for many years. Now, even the prime minister and the pope are saying, yes, genocide happened. But if they're admitting to that under international law, they should be put on trial for it. But they aren't. You see, they use the rhetoric, but the stuff keeps carrying on. And
Yeah.
people don't know what to do about that. It's almost a way to reinforce people's helplessness because they're all thinking, well, they're admitting to it, but they're not being arrested. Look at, they're all powerful. What can you do against these guys? Forget it.
Yeah.
Let's go back
Okay.
to sleep.
Go back to sleep. Yeah. And did you find that more witnesses were coming out even during the court case then, like coming approaching you?
Who did? Sorry, it faded again.
Sorry, I was just saying, were you finding even more witnesses have approached you, even like after the court case or during the court case?
Yep. I'll give you an example. I just got an email a couple of days ago from a woman who is, I'm just going to check my notes here. You know, a guy called Aleister Crowley?
Yeah, the
Did,
Satanist. Yeah.
okay. So this young woman in America,
Hmm.
actually, she's not young. She talks like a child because she has multiple personalities and she goes back to the childhood state.
Yeah.
And she's the one who talks to me, right? And she was part of this thing. She kept repeating over and over, OTO, and that stands for Ordo Templi Orientis, and that's the name for Aleister Crowley's group.
Yeah.
She described rituals that were done to her in Michigan and over in Israel by her parents that are an identical description of what happens in the Ninth Circle. They buried her alive. They withdrew blood from her. They made her kill other children. They they described. She described very weird rituals where after killing a child, they would get her to quote go into the ether and collect parts of the soul. And she said she saw the soul of these children as little kind of
Mm.
bubble, bright bubbles, right? So it's weird. Some people might say it's soul captivation. It's a way to find how to control people in an ultimate sense. And that was always the research aim of all these crimes we've been talking about for so long, right? That
And
the
who
bigger
was she?
agenda is, yeah,
Yeah.
this
And who
satanic.
and who was she saying that she saw do that?
Pardon me?
Who did she say that she saw doing this?
These people, they call themselves the Brethren,
Right.
but they were members of this OTO, which is if you look it up online, you'll see the image of it,
Yeah.
their symbol, and how it's Aleister Crowley's group, right?
OTO.
And
Yeah.
I know they're in England. They maybe started in England, but they're big now in America. They have chapters all over. And she named names. She said where it was happening, how the police were helping them.
Wow.
She saw one guy. This was happening to her in the early 70s when she was a little girl. And she said she saw a guy who looked like a hippie who claimed to be
Mm.
part of the leadership of the Brethren take her to a barn with 6 other children. And he suffocated all 6 children in front of her and said, this will happen to you unless you work for us. Right. So she became their kind of minion after that for a long time. But
Oh God. Yeah, I'm guessing that's how it works as well. They can blackmail them, and even if they don't want to do it, that's the thing, right? Yeah.
well, and also if you're raised in that, it's normal. You know, I remember often counseling
Mm.
women who could only feel they were loved if they were being beaten and raped because that's what their father did to them or their mother did to them, right, at a
Right.
young age. So that's what's so hard about working, with like quote healing, which doesn't really happen out of this, but working with people to get through this, they can just survive every day. They don't see any alternative. It's total despair they're locked in, especially when all the police and courts are helping these guys. I mean, where do you even begin
I
to try
know.
to take
Yeah.
this?
It's very difficult to get healing and justice when the whole system's like upside down, topsy-turvy, right? So just going back to the court then. So was the reason that they came to the verdict that they did, was that all based on witness statements, or what was actually provided as evidence? Was it just the witness statements, or how was it composed?
Go back to the very beginning of these postings I
Yeah.
mentioned on my website, and you'll see.
Uh-huh.
Um, some of the other evidence provided was, and we had this for actually a couple of years now, a log from the Vatican Library,
Yeah.
from the secret archives, describing the rituals of the Ninth Circle going back to December 1869. Although it's much older than that, but they actually list in Latin the
Hmm.
names of the participants and where it was held and everything. We have records, corporate records from Pfizer and some of these other pharmaceutical companies showing their drug testing protocols at the very location where these children are being killed. That we have correspondence. It's all described in there. It's quite considerable. Plus forensic evidence, like we had in Canada from, say, mass grave sites of children that confirm these were human remains. Buried police reports that Interpol provided for us, because Interpol knows all about these things, but they're blocked politically every time they try to look into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, it's all three that you need in a court of law: the eyewitness, the
Forensic,
documentation,
and the
and the
forensic.
proof.
Is that stuff actually publicly available now then? Can we find that on your website and stuff?
What's happened is it's an ongoing investigation. So
Right.
none of they're trying to assess what can be released that won't compromise eyewitnesses
Okay.
and future people. There's rewards out there, and we're waiting for people. Usually you wait about a month to 2 months, and then you start seeing a response in a big way, especially when Andrew and others are facing trial, right? People feel safer to talk. So it'll probably be in the new year sometime. This stuff is going to be kind of incrementally released depending on security of the people, the witnesses. I mean, one of them has already disappeared. Like you got to protect people or they're not going to come forward, right? So, but it all, like the previous cases, it's all eventually brought out. They eventually all admit it, but in a very controlled way, right? That's not going to be threaten the system and the other people who you don't see who are implicated in this, right?
Absolutely, yeah, the ones behind the curtain a bit more. So what about Charles? So do you think anything's going to happen with Charles or not? Or do you think he'll just he'll be protected and he'll just carry on regardless?
I think there's so much now on him that he's abdication isn't inconceivable, right? You got to bring, I don't know what other joker is next in line, but I mean, what they're worried about is that the monarchy itself might be threatened. I mean, there's rumblings, like in England, a couple of months ago, a group of people formed the Republic of Albion, right? And republicofalbion.com, if you want to read their efforts. They're going around the country doing what he did in Canada, forming assemblies, saying, look, here's more proof why we have to disavow oath of allegiance to the crown and establish a constitutional republic. There's groups doing that. And this is some of the repercussions they don't want to see, right? They don't want that to have a systemic effect. They just want to always talk about individuals. Right.
That's a systemic effect. But do you think Charles will just kind of live his life normally without kind of worrying about anything, or do you think that the daggers will be after him? And there'll be targets on him.
Usually, what they don't tend to do that.
Okay.
The top people just retire on their pension, and they distract, and you never hear about them again.
Damn.
Right? But don't forget, when that Ratzinger did that, he stepped down after the Spanish government threatened to arrest him after they saw our evidence. And he never left the Vatican till the day he died, and he went out on a box. Okay, so he knew he could face arrest. He knew that any court in the world could issue an arrest warrant against him, and he could be picked up. If the top guy in the Church of Rome, oldest corporation on the planet, does that, then anybody is fair game, and they know that, right?
So it's difficult to know whether anything's going to happen. Any actual arrests will happen with these people. That's the thing, isn't it?
Well, like I say, the process has started. They've already picked up a couple of those guys. And like I said, what I say to people is the ball's in your pocket now, people. The ball's in your court.
Yeah.
What are you going to do in your community and this is even more important than arresting people, right? Which they're figureheads, after all. Don't forget, there's many, many others involved in this thing. But stopping these ceremonies. And October 31st, in just a few days, is Samhain, the Celtic New Year, but it's a high point in the Satanic calendar. We know that they've shifted location of these Ninth Circle ceremonies. There will be those rituals. Places like Westminster Abbey in London, Stonehenge, some of the places, big cathedrals around England, we know are places where these things have gone on in the past. So we have people going in. We're going to shut, wherever we can find them, we're going to shut down these ceremonies and film it and expose these people. And we say that to people everywhere. Do that. Wherever there's a Catholic church, Church of England, I mean, they're all connected to this. And we find if you even start handing out flyers at some of these churches, you gauge the response. And if they start talking paranoid and calling the cops, where there's smoke, there's fire. You've hit something. And that actually happened the other day. A group of people in California did that, and they went to this old Spanish mission church in San Jose, and the priest starts swinging. He comes out swinging at these people, and he's hysterical. And because
Mm.
they're talking about, child killing rituals, and the police are called, and it's like that happened in Vancouver. When we did that, occupied that church. Within a month, the government's talking apologies, right? That's one of
Mm.
their Achilles heels. And so we urge people to do that all over, and we help train them to go in and do those actions, right?
Yeah, because they're doing that. I'm guessing they're moving their ceremonies to other important ley lines, right? So a lot of these buildings, they're on important nodes, aren't they? Energetic nodes on the Earth's grid, right? That's why they're doing it.
I think that's one of the reasons. And we found that in the past too. But don't forget, these happen. It isn't just one cult doing this. This is kind of a practice you find everywhere, and it isn't. It's all the time. It isn't just on certain days or at certain places, right?
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, yeah. So what's the next few weeks look like for you then, Kevin? Like, what have you still got to finish off, or is it still ongoing, or is there new things happening, or what?
Well, it's always ongoing.
Yeah.
I've been working so hard with the court prosecutor. I'm taking a break for a few days, but
Right.
I'm like I say, there's this group in America, Joe Moreno's relative, who
Hmm.
is tying in Dolan and Trump, the Charlie Kirk killing in Salt Lake City, the death of the Mormon leader, uh, Mitt Romney, his sister quote, dies suddenly. This whole Mormon connection is another thing we're working on because they
Right.
not only have a lot of money like the Vatican Bank that Trump and Dolan want, but um, they are implicated in a big way in the similar rituals. I worked with Mormons for a number of years describing Ninth Circle rituals happening right under the temple in Salt Lake City. So they have a lot to lose too. That's another front that's opening up in this whole thing.
Gosh, can I just before you go, can I ask you about Charlie Kirk then? What do you think that was about?
He was an insider. He knew about, and again, if you read back in the articles, we go into the
Yeah.
whole Kirk thing to some degree, but there were two Deutsche Bank officers who were killed. And they were involved in questionable loans to Trump International, right? Virginia Goffer was heard to say that Trump was the one who was involved in raping her, but that was removed from all media and court reports, right?
Hmm.
And she's dead. She was involved in a child custody case, and yet she commits suicide, right? Her book just came out, right? Uh,
Hmm.
about naming all these people. Anyway, Charlie Kirk knew all this, and he was in Salt Lake, just south of Salt Lake City, on a campus when he was shot, right? And the whole his knowledge, I think they were house cleaning basically. The Mormon and Vatican leadership had been house cleaning. They've been getting rid of any potential people, like in the movies, the way the mafia get rid of witnesses. He undoubtedly knew stuff that they didn't want coming out because he was somewhat of a loose cannon, and he
Mm.
had, in fact, had been making reference to children being harmed by the Mormon Church, right? And next thing
Hmm.
you know, he's dead. So I mean,
Because
I think it's all of that, but there'll be more, I'm sure, that'll surface about that as well, right?
he was also a day before talking about Israel and how Israel in control of the institutions. Do you not think it could have been that?
It could have been any number of. You see, it's never just one thing.
Yeah.
The people arranging the hits go, wait, there's this, there's this, there's this. He's
Mm.
just too much of a liability. Kill him in
Yeah.
plain sight. Kill him in
Mm.
plain sight. That's a warning to the others. Just shortly after that, Russell Nilson, the head, the prophet they call him of the Mormon Church, dies, right? And then there's an attack the same day. There's an attack on a Mormon church in Michigan that kills 4 people. So the standard distraction to divert from the fact that there's hits going on, right?
But what does Kirk know about the Mormon Church though?
Pardon me.
What does Kirk know about Mormonism, the Mormon Church?
Oh well, the Mormon Church is very important in the whole American intelligence establishment. The
Yeah.
CIA and the FBI recruit a lot. They protect the Mormons. When we were doing this investigation and calling for police, and
Yeah.
to come and research these tunnels that were connecting the Catholic
Mm.
cathedral and the Mormon temple. It got shut down, and people were threatened by the FBI. They came to their homes and said, "Don't look into this." And so, it's easy to speculate, but when you look at how the pieces are beginning to come together, then yeah, it points in a certain direction, and that is he was aware of the Vatican Mormon connection.
Ha-
Pope Francis let the Mormon Church open a temple in downtown Rome, even though they consider them a pagan cult. And other churches in Italy are taxed and not allowed to operate. But there are the Mormons sitting down private audience with Bergoglio to open this church. So yeah, there's a very close bond, and
mm.
he
And
knew about it.
How did Kirk know about all that then? Because you said he was an insider. How was he an insider?
Very close to Trump, and he was a kind of a protege. He was on the rise in the Republican Party. He represented that wing that's dissatisfied with how blatantly oligarchical Trump is,
Mm.
and putting a clean face. I mean, you need these people in the background to come forward when the main guys are delegitimated, and
Mm.
that's. I forgot to mention that one of the, when I mentioned the present Pope as a young boy who was 23 at the time, um, being involved in the Ninth Circle ceremony when he got ordained as a Catholic priest. He then went on a red list, which means these are acceptable candidates for popes. So you can't be a pope unless you've been through these rituals. Everybody else
Hmm.
is just on a blacklist and they can't ever become pope. It's the same politically, right? You have to have been involved in these things and then you're a reliable candidate. Well, maybe
Right.
he considered Kirk wasn't reliable anymore because he wasn't playing the game entirely. You
So
can't
was
really know ultimately,
no,
right?
because so was Kirk also involved in the Night Circle rituals or not?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Mm.
Uh, there hasn't been
Yeah.
any evidence at this point that he was, but I mean, it's like the policy of criminal in the Catholic Church. You cannot tell the police about child or you get excommunicated. Every priest, every bishop, every cardinal, every
Mm.
pope knows about that. And they're not allowed, if you're in, it's because you know the game and you play along either by looking away or cooperating directly, right? So
Mm.
it's nobody can be in that system and be guiltless. I mean, that's the reality of it, right?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I wonder how deep that goes then. So you got people like Candace Owens, and also there's people on the the right who are like the commentators, the political commentators. At what point does it become they're in the club or they're just outside the club? Like, is it black and white, in or out, or is it a sliding scale, or how does that work?
Well, when you think about it, we're all in the club. I mean,
Yeah.
don't we all pay taxes? Don't we
Right.
all, cooperate in the system? Don't we all look the other way when this goes on?
No, but
And,
I mean, like the
you can call it,
ninth circle stuff. Like, if we're saying potentially anyone that's sort of got a platform like Charlie Kirk is probably involved in the rituals. We don't know, but I'm guessing that's what you're saying, right? They have to be to kind of get that position or not.
well, you have to be to have a senior position within the church itself, and I
Okay,
believe within government,
right.
because church and state are one and the same. We know that in reality that it's the same beast.
Yeah.
So they all know at the senior level and participate, but at the lower level, you have to just simply like that cop told me once in New Jersey,
Mm,
and he
mm.
said we never convict for child rape unless a kid's been raped 20 times because we don't know whose toes we might be stepping on.
Yeah.
That's a direct quote from a senior retired cop in New Jersey, right? So I mean, they all play the game, and it's
Mm.
if you could call a protest for Gaza and you'll get 10,000 people. Call a protest about child trafficking, you're lucky if you get a dozen.
Mm.
People are afraid of the issue, right? So I mean, isn't
Yeah.
that collusion?
Yeah, so I'm guessing some of these commentators they might know what's going on, but they just keep quiet about some of that stuff. They don't, yeah, they might not be involved themselves, but they know about it and they're just keeping quiet. Yeah,
Hey, it's so organized. That's the thing,
yeah,
John. Like
yeah.
I was working with some Inuit in northern Canada,
Hmm.
and one of the guys said, I just went into the Yellowknife Public Library and asked for Murder by Decree, and they sent me back an email. We're not allowed to post that book because I'm on a list of prescribed authors whose books cannot go into Canadian libraries, and we've heard that right across the country. So it's that organized because our evidence goes against the official,
Yeah,
narrative that
that's how
wasn't
controlled it is.
genocide.
Yeah. I'm guessing some people do kind of they have to kind of, they can't keep everyone out. Some people do bleed through that are probably genuine people, right? But then they just keep a close eye on them, make sure they don't speak out too much, and trying to see how much they're speaking out or staying within the parameters of what they're allowed to talk about, and then they kind of monitor that way, right?
I don't even think that's necessary most of the time because they
Yeah,
rely on the cop in people's heads. The problem is self-censorship, not some
yeah,
big brother coming down on people. That's
yeah,
usually not needed. People know to censor themselves and not go into certain areas,
yeah.
and that's the problem.
Mm.
It's not the minority of these people who are doing the problem. It's the majority who know about it and are just too afraid to do anything. That's the problem. And that's why these things carry on, right? Recently we've sold almost 2,000 of these online through Amazon. And what it does, it describes what the Vatican is, its history, how it fulfills all of the definitions of a transnational criminal body, how it should be expelled from the UN, and the whole diplomatic recognition of the Vatican canceled because it's not a country, it's not a nation or a government at all
Yeah.
under international law. So it's indispensable if you want to talk to people knowledgeably about what the Vatican is. This is the book to get.
Fantastic. And the website is murderbydecree.com. All right. I'm going to put
That's
all
right.
the information in the description below. All right.
Right.
Good. Kevin, good stuff, my man. Yeah, well done on everything in the last couple of months. It's a shame you didn't make it to England. We were looking forward to having you at our event, and it
Oh,
never
that's
had.
just been delayed. I mean, my
Yeah,
plan
yeah,
is to get there.
yeah,
I didn't want to go and come in the winter anyway. I want to come in the spring where I got more
yeah.
than a
Fair
year
enough.
ahead of me, right?
Yeah,
Because I have been invited to come all over Europe, including over to Russia and Eastern Europe now.
yeah.
And so I'm going to make a big thing of it when I come, and it'll likely be in the spring, right?
Okay, fantastic. We'll hold a space here, an event in spring if we put one on. All right, mate.